My name is Kristina and I am the Senior Consultant working in our Charity Division here at Beaumont People. And alongside me today, I have the amazing Erin, who is our Senior Consultant working in our Corporate Services team. Welcome to Ask Me Anything. This is a quick and short power session. Talking about all things and issues relating to the current recruitment trend we are seeing at the moment. Erin, I'm going to hand it to you. What's our current topic and what are we talking about today?
Thanks, Kristina. Today we're going to talk about CV and storytelling and how to sell your skills. Kristina and I spend a large majority of our day looking at candidate resumes and job seeker resumes. So we really want to try to be able to help you set yourself in the best light for you to be able to land that dream job. We thought it was really good to start this discussion today to talk about how and why to tailor your resume to the job that you're applying for. And I give myself as an example. I actually spent 10 years as a teacher before I stepped into the world of recruitment. So making that transition, I was, having to take those transferable skills and put it on my resume for hiring managers to see, to be able to pick up and see what it was that I've done in my past and how that sort of would translate to the roles that I was applying for. So when Kristina and I were prepping for this, we sat down and said, actually it's really important for job seekers to really tailor their resume to the job that they're applying for. And it's okay if you're thinking about maybe applying for a few different roles. Your skill set may blend into a few different areas, but have those tailored resumes specific for the roles that you're applying for. Kristina, I understand that this happens a lot in the charity sector that you're a specialist within. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we see it a lot when we see these candidates wanting to make the transition from, the commercial sector into the not-for-profit sector, which, we're always massive advocates for. We're always singing out and looking at people wanting to make that change. But I guess the biggest challenge sometimes can be is when those candidates unfortunately don't tailor those CVs. And I think we can all appreciate it's quite different to put forward an application for a sales position in a commercial environment, and very different for what that would look like in the not-for-profit space. So I always recommend, and the way I like to say it is, do you do volunteering? Do you do things outside of the normal that you can kind of add and include into your CV to really actually tell that story around why you're wanting to make that change into this full purpose space? It doesn't just have to be volunteering. Have you had any interactions with not-for-profits, through your business, through your current role in the commercial space, and have you had those connections? I think that's a really important story to tell, because again, it kind of really demonstrates your want and your kind of interest in wanting to make that transition, and can always kind of help tell that story as you are applying for these jobs and hopefully looking to make that transition into the space.
It is really challenging and hard to, unless you're a certain personality, to sort of sell yourself, and that's a really hard task to do. Sometimes I find it's good to speak to maybe a previous colleague or a prior colleague. Obviously it might be a bit of a conflict of interest if you are job seeking to ask your current colleague, but to maybe speak to somebody that you reported into previously, or somebody that you sat next to that was at your same level, and say, what was it that I did that was great? Just to kind of have a feel for, it is hard to say the things that you brought to the table that were really great and could be great in an organization. But if you seek that advice from someone else, from your peers, they could very easily say, well, actually, you did this, and I thought that was really great. And you go, oh, okay. Because sometimes you do those things quite naturally, and you don't necessarily think, oh, actually, that's something that's a huge value add to an organization. So I think it's really important to, tailor what it is that you do specifically, for a new role. I think there was something else that we wanted to talk about in terms of a personal summary, which can help with that differentiation. Kristina, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, yes, that does bring us to point two, and that is, our recommendation is to always include a personal summary. And that's just something that we would recommend putting on at the top of your CV. This is almost imperative. It's going to hook in the reader, and it's going to want them to engage and read on more. 3 to 5 lines, is absolutely fine. And it's all about being able to cover off, what has been your past background, what are your achievements, and what is next for you? What are those career goals? I guess in some ways it's almost like that sales elevator pitch, but in words. So I think that's kind of my absolute recommendation. And I think, Erin talks to it as well all the time. And, that's, I think, crucial. And as I said, it doesn't have to be too long at all. It just really kind of identifies, what it is you're looking for. And I think especially if you're, a candidate with several years of experience, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to kind of consolidate all of that. And, I think in those paragraphs, that's where that opportunity you have to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, if you're a candidate who has had many years experience, maybe even dot pointing out what the experience is, so you could see that natural transition. I started out as a coordinator, then I went to a team leader, then I went to a manager, now I'm at this level. I'd actually like to, do this or work in this industry because XYZ. So it's really good to reference the stage in which you're in currently and where you're looking to go. So somebody, for example, who might be currently sat with an asset management team, but they've previously worked in structured finance, they want to go back to structured finance. They don't want to necessarily be stuck within that asset management box. They can reference and say, look, it was 10 years ago, but I actually really loved it. You could see in my snapshot, I've done it. But in my personal summary, I'm going to say, currently an asset manager, doing this, want to get back into structured finance. So it's very much addressing the questions that hiring managers are going to have of, well, why are they doing this if they've traditionally done this? So you're absolutely right, Kristina, that it's covering that career background, going through a bit of your achievements and what your future goals are. And I think that's really important. And I think as well, talking about, the passion or making a transition, like you said, Kristina, someone who has always predominantly worked within a commercial environment, wanting to get into a charity. But why? So have a think about the why as well, because I think that's really important. What do you feel about in terms of giving, and we get this question all the time, and I always have different answers. So Kristina, I'm curious to see how you feel. We often get, should it be a 1-page resume? Should it be a 2-page resume? What if I have 4 or 5 pages? What would you say in terms of, what works best for the sector you work for? What do you look for when you're looking at resumes?
Yeah, look, I think, it has to be relevant to obviously the years of experience that you do have. It goes without saying, someone that's still early in their career, 1 to 2 pages is absolutely fine. I do also am a big believer. I don't think, CV should be going anything beyond, 4 pages at the absolute max. And we're talking, these are senior leaders by this stage, because you also don't want to not include and you want to make sure that the story is there. However, I do believe, and I don't know what you think about this, Erin, is, all those experiences that you had maybe right early on in your career don't need paragraphs and huge dot points around what you achieved in it. Short summaries and snippets are more than fine. I think what people want to see and what we want to be able to read is what's happened recently. What are the relevant years? What have you been doing now? Because unfortunately, although we like to kind of go back there, what you did 15 years ago may not be as relevant anymore, but always important to include on a CV.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's somebody looking to get back into an industry that they were in prior. Maybe perhaps referencing it might be relevant, but again, it's going to be very tailored and specific for the job in which they're going. And Kristina, you bring up a good point about the length of a resume. I'm very much on board with what you're saying. I think, two pages is really good. It's sometimes really hard to squeeze everything into one, and absolutely senior leaders, you are looking at more. But I think that good sort of, a really strong summary and really strong dot points of experience. And then you can go into the more specific job responsibilities within those roles. But it gives that good snapshot to the hiring manager, which I think brings us to our last point. Kristina and I did a bit of research before coming together, and actually the industry feedback, and this is across all hiring managers. Recruiters probably spend the most time looking at resumes, but external hiring managers, when you're getting lots of resumes, they are actually saying that they spend between 7 to 11 seconds looking at a resume. So as a job seeker, that's quite, it's a fascinating, piece of evidence, but it really kind of is a bit shocking, when you think of the time and effort you put into a resume. So it's really important to capture, the attention of a hiring manager. And there's, that's a really, challenging thing to think about. You really have to have a read of it. It's similar to reading the blurb on the back of a book. You look on the back of a book and you go, yeah, that looks like something I'd be interested in. So kind of put yourself, I guess, in the driver's seat of a hiring manager with that type of attitude. That, okay, I've got, if somebody had 7 to 11 seconds to read a snapshot, are they going to then want to open the book? Are they going to want to then invite me in for an interview? Kristina, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another good thing to say and a good idea to do is, get your family to help you out, give them your CV and, get them to have a read of it, time them, give them 7 to 11 seconds and, ask them, what does it seem like I do and what does it seem like that I want to do? And that can always be a good test. And, often they don't know exactly probably what you do, every day for work. So, they're a great person to be able to utilize to kind of do that test. And if they walk away to say, unfortunately, I just don't get it, it then means you maybe need to go back and make some edits. If they do, it's a great indication that you've hit the mark there and you're on those on the right path.
I think that's great advice, is really using the people around you. And then, you can go back and have a look at your summary, have a look at your resume and see what you can capture, so that 7 to 11 seconds is going to invite you in for an interview. So that's a great suggestion, Kristina.
Awesome. Well, look, we hope that you have found this today useful. We are wrapping up now, but it goes without saying, if you have any questions, if you want to talk through some of these points, please do reach out, visit our Beaumont website, or get in touch now with either one of us.